The first election in Nigeria was before independence in 1960, so it was around 1959 thereabout, and that was to prepare Nigeria for independence. And mainly around that period, it was all about the parliamentary, so and then the different regions in Nigeria. So as you can see right here, so you can see the northern region, western region, eastern region. I mean, midwestern came later on, but so at the time, so it was just about preparing Nigeria for life after independence in terms of democracy. So and then we have these major parties. I mean, there are more than this, but the four major ones are the Northern People Congress, and which was Tafawa Balewa was kind of like a leader at the time, and Aminu Kano as well with his party Action Group, also in the Western region, so which was Obafemi Awolowo and Azikwe for the Eastern region. So these were the people that were the leader for that period. What then happened was the leader of the Northern People's Congress, Tafawa Balewa, became the first prime minister of Nigeria, him right here, and then Azikwe became the president. Well, the prime minister possibly was more higher position than the president at the time. And what would really later happen also was that after independence, and then another parliamentary election took place. That was around 1964, 65 thereabout, whereby some of the elections were didn't even take place because of malpractice and some things that didn't really go well, and then they end up to have the election, and then Northern People's Congress or Tafawa Balewa then also retained his position as the prime minister of Nigeria. And later on in 1966, we know what happened with the coup. The first coup was really bloody coup in Nigeria at the time, and the military took over, and then there was another coup, a counter coup, which also became a period where Nigeria was really going through a lot of tough time. And we must not forget the Nigeria Civil War, which lasted for about 2.5 years. And then later on, then we then have after the military rule, when Obasanjo handed over power to the civilian, and then we have the 1979 election that took place. And then mainly that time as well, it was a case of Nigeria election has always been really about tribe, because we have the different regions in Nigeria whereby they speak different languages. We know all of this makes it really very challenging in terms of the election in Nigeria, because people are always going to in most cases we want to vote for somebody that's from their area. But 1979 election, we have Obafemi Awolowo who contested again, and then we have Azikwe, and then we have Shagari. And Shagari was the one that then came on top, that won the majority. And then we have all this blue area, and actually I was even surprised that even Shagari won Rivers and Akwa Ibom down that way. So and and then we have Azikwe, which just won Imo, Anambra, Plateau as well. And this area here was Aminu Kano. There was Aminu Kano, so just won a Kano area, and then we have Waziri Ibrahim, who won this area of Borno area. So, and it ended up to be that Shagari became the president in that 1979 election. And come in 1983, it was still kind of like the similar phase, so which Shagari was the incumbent, and then he won the majority again. It was still similar thing with 1979, whereby Azikwe just won his main area, the southeast, and then you have Obafemi Awolowo won the same area as well, the Yoruba side, and kind of like the Benin area, Midwestern area. And Shagari won majority again. There are other people that contested, but Shagari was the one that contested from the north, but Shagari was the one that was the major one. And we know what happened again after 1983. It was the case of the same year that he won the second term, he was arrested, and then there was the military who took over. Guess who overtook the civilian government at the time? It was Buhari. Buhari, that we all know now, is the one that overtook, that took power by force. Then Nigeria returned back to the military era. And in 1993, the military decided that let's return power back to civilian and the real democracy to come back. And then it was Abiola, MKO Abiola, he was the one that contested, and then we have Tofa as well. So both of them contested for that 1993 election. And what really happened that year, it was a case of there's always a little bit of tribal in Nigeria election, but that was a little bit different because MK Abiola was really very popular. Of course, obviously he won most of his all his area is southwest because he's a Yoruba man, and then you have Tofa as well who won some part of the north, but MK Abiola really he really was really very popular. He won a lot of part of the north as well, so which make him to get the majority of the vote. But that election was annulled. It was basically cancelled by this man here, Babangida, and he was the one that kind of like cancelled that election, and which means that MK Abiola, he wasn't sworn in as the president. And what happened, it was a lot of trouble in Nigeria at that time. There was a riot, and it was just a terrible time in Nigeria history. And then in 1999, it was a case of let's just let's return the democracy, let's just bring the democracy back for real. And it was because of Abiola that was that almost like his mandate was stolen from him, or they didn't allow him. Eventually died actually while in kind of like in prison or in custody of the military. And so 2009 when they decided because Abiola died and he was a Yoruba man, and it was a case of gentleman agreement. The two major political parties were allowed to just have somebody from southwest, somebody that is a Yoruba man. It wasn't like a formal thing, but it was just a gentleman agreement. And then the two party, and it ended up to be that Obasanjo he just had the majority vote, and it didn't really have. Olufalaye had most of the southwest, the Yoruba area, which means Yoruba people didn't really vote for Obasanjo in that first time. So Obasanjo, so Olufalaye just had Sokoto, Zamfara, and Yobe states really in the north. But Obasanjo had all the other places, all this green area, and democracy was back. And this is the reason why this is from that time period when there is that public holiday to celebrate democracy returning back to Nigeria. And in 2003, so because after every 4 years, that's the election cycle in Nigeria. So in 2003, that was when another election came, and then it was Buhari who contested. Buhari, and let's not forget that every year, every election year, there's always a lot of political parties and people contested, but just focusing on the major candidate. So I have him, Obasanjo, who was the incumbent president, and Buhari. Both of them, it's certain about Nigeria is that you always have these military men coming removing their military uniform and coming as a civilian. So the both of them were military general. Let's not forget that. So, and he was the one that overtook power in 1983. Let's just remember that as well, from Shagari. So basically, he was able to win. Again, Nigeria election can be tribal sometimes. You have, the northern part. Most of the north, he won all of those, and then Obasanjo won his area, the southwest, and basically this one is just really very glaring, like the south for Obasanjo, and then the north, the core north for Buhari. But Obasanjo ended up to have the majority in the election of that year. And 2007 is another year where election cycle came around again, and this one really it was a case of this man here, Yaradua, who was almost like he was almost like initiated by him, because that's something very common in Nigeria, where they tend to, like, if somebody's leaving power, they tend to want somebody that they know that they're familiar with to take over from them. And so you have him, Yaradua, who became president in 2007. He got the majority vote, 69.6%. And then you have the other two familiar faces, well, Atiku Abubakar, who was the vice president of Obasanjo, for the two times. He was the vice president of him, and then he contested to be president, and then Buhari contested again the second time, and he didn't really win. Yaradua won. And then the next election cycle was in 2011. So to come 2011, you have the election again, and then Buhari again the third time. He contested the third time, and then and then he was the vice of Yaradua. Yaradua, who was really a sick president. I think he did about 3 years roughly during his tenure as president, and he died sadly. He passed away sadly because he was a sick president. And then what later happened was he was the one that then took over as the vice, became president for around about 1 year thereabout, and then the election cycle came again, and then he contested and as the president, and he won the majority again. Tribal is really very common in Nigeria election. You have the southern part, whereby he's from south there, and then he won most of the south. And then you have Buhari, who contested the third time, and then he won most of the core north as well. And then there's another person who was Nuri Badu, who won just that state, Oshun there. So and then another 4 years, and then you have the 2015 election, whereby it was still the same familiar face, Buhari, the fourth time. And this is the phrase from that popular phrase from Tinubu, Oshekini Olule. This is Yoruba now. Oshekini Olule. So that's like, that Tinubu rant, like he was saying that he helped Buhari, that he contested 3 times and he lost. And that's why, he was able to, if you notice, all the time that he had contested before, he was not able to win the southwest, because to win the election in Nigeria, you have to be able to win most of maybe 2 major regions, really 2 major regions, well, not regions this time. I'm talking about 2 major areas. I'm talking about mainly Nigeria is mainly the north, the southwest, and the southeast and south. So these are the core area. In most cases, people tend to, somebody that is from the north, that is a strong candidate, tend to win most of the core north at the top there. But if you are not able to win like the southwest and then the southeast and south side area, so either you're able to win southeast and south together with the core north, or you're able to win the core north and southwest, you tend to be able to win. So, and because he has not been able to manage to win either the southeast and south or the southwest with the core north. He has not really been successful, and this is the reason why in 2015 he was able to get the support of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or maybe the support of the southwest, and then he managed to win that area with the core north, or where he usually managed to win before. And this is the reason why Jonathan, he lost, because he managed to win all this the southeast and south, but and then some like the middle belt of Nigeria, but it did not win. So, and that's the reason why Buhari won. And let's not forget that a military general, because I always say that military, I'm not a fan of the military in terms of ruling. I'm a fan of them with the great work they do in defending the country, and that's what they should be doing, but not really be in at the helm of power ruling the country. So he was he won this time. And then come 2019, so it was a case of generally president worldwide, not just in Nigeria or Africa really, they tend to, when they're in power, they tend to want to go for more than one time, because let's face it, really, to be realistic, one time, like 4 years or 5 years, whichever country that policy that it is, it's not really enough to do something really significant. They tend to want to go for the second term, and that is the case whereby Buhari going for the second time, and then he was able to still continue that trend. He was able to win all the core north and then most of the south west, apart from the Oyo state. So again, it's a case of win most of the core north area, and then win south west, or south side, or south east, or whichever area you come from, win majority of that area and then win two other areas, and then you become president. That's the way it always goes. So if you see article here, he was able to win all of this red, but he didn't manage to win. Assuming he was able to win all of this, and then he was able to win maybe some part there, he would have actually maybe won as well. So, but yeah, so it was still a case of two Fulani men really. So it was a battle of who win most of their area. So and 2009, let's not forget that he is a military general, because I'm not really a fan of the military in terms of being the president or being the helm of affair of a country. I am a fan of them with what they do in defending the country, but not a fan for them to forcefully overtaking power. And this is what they done in Nigeria consistently, and then they then come in civilian dress to come and rule the country. But something really good with the future election is that it seems like we are getting to that point that we are now having people that are just ordinary people that are not they are not a former military general. And at the end of the day, it was still Buhari who won the majority. He was the one that won the majority in this election, and then he was able to become president for the second term. So there are still future election. Every 4 years is when election comes in, and the next election, let's see what will happen.